we're a full cohort now. Let's get rolling with this. So welcome to everybody. This is the first in the ICA UK series of focus conversations, and we put them together because we felt that there was an opportunity to give people a chance to get away from all the rest of this for a little while and think about a topic they're interested in, and also in the meantime get a little bit of a handle on a method, which is called, in this case, is called the focus conversation. Again, I know that many of you have done some work in top methods, so you already have a bit of background in it, but the focus conversation is just a way of having a more in-depth and full conversation about a given topic. So I'm Anne Lukens. I've been with ICA UK for longer than I want to admit to, but somewhere around 20 years, I think. And I've been a lead trainer for quite some time. Megan Evans and Dawn Williams are also here. They're from ICA. They're also lead trainers, and they're doing the background producing today, so I don't have to touch any buttons, because when I touch the buttons, you can forget about it. So they're helping on that front. I would, again, if you could stay on mute, but when you do want to talk, unmute. And I'll be watching you. You could throw your hand in the air if you've got something and I haven't caught you yet. I'm trying to do eye contact as well, in that sort of weird video kind of way that we do eye contact. And also use chat if there are any questions. If you're not getting through to me, if I'm not hearing you or I'm not catching you, throw it in chat, because Dawn will prod me and make sure that I am on top of that. So that would be great. So today, our topic today, we'll look at the process towards the end of the time we're together today. But the topic we're looking at is a collaborative leadership topic. I run a collaborative leadership course that uses ICA top methods. And I start the course with a number of different videos and different focus conversations, because it's a way to get people thinking about many different aspects of leadership. So we're looking at Tate Calgon today, an Israeli conductor who looks at leadership through the lens of conducting. I love this video. I hope you enjoyed it, because I just thought it was amazing. Very different when you're trying to think about leadership and sort of hook the two together, but just a really interesting way of looking at things. And I just, as an aside, I recommend that get on TED Talks if you want some inspiration. Amazing people out there, but he's one of them. So he's the one I picked for today. The aims of the session. So Megan, could we go to our slides? I guess we're on slide 3 if we're looking at aims of the sessions.
Can you see the slides?
Yep. Can everybody see the slides? Okay. So the aims of the session today are to connect, share, and learn with other people, or sharing interest in a particular topic. We're running loads of focus conversations. This topic is around collaborative leadership. We're going to experience the top focus conversation method and then share some sources of further information and support. So we'll come back to the slides in a bit, but that's really the gist of what the session is about today. And yeah, to experience both the topic and the method, and to tie those together at the end. So I'll give you, we can lose the slides again, Megan. I think we're okay for now. And then what I'll give you is a little bit of context. Again, I run this collaborative leadership course. I'm running another session of these focus conversations. I think it's in June. It might be in May. I have to have a look again. And we'll be looking at the Kouzes and Posner 5 practices of exemplary leadership in that one. So there are lots of different topics that we can cover. And we bring on that course, we bring lots of different resources, lots of different things around leadership, but the ICA methods underpin them, because the way that ICA looks at things, and we'll look at their values and some of the things around top methods later on, it ties in collaboration, participation, and getting your teams on board with you. When I first saw this particular talk, I was really engaged by it. I really, I love his style, and I love his approach to things. I felt it was a great opportunity to look at leadership in a slightly more subtle way, in a way, a nuanced way, something that's not quite what we usually think of leadership as, which sometimes is tied into management, tied into something slightly different. So let's get started with our conversation. I'm gonna walk you through a process that helps us build from stage to stage. Please do participate. Please, I will be checking in and trying to get everybody involved. But sharing and listening are the key ingredients for you. If you can share and you can listen, then you'll have a great time in this conversation. So let's first sort of get in the same place and remember. I don't know how long ago each of you watched the video. I watched it again this morning to be sure. I had it in my head, but I've watched it many times. So first, let's just think about the video itself and maybe look at it and think about what you remember of it in terms of what you saw and what you heard. So first, I wonder if you could think about who are the people, the types of people, the actual people, who are the people in this video? And anybody throw in, we're trying to build the picture of what this video was all about. So who was in it?
Leonard Bernstein.
Yep, from my youth. Yeah. Anybody else? Types of people? What kinds of people did you see?
I would say the audience. He made a big thing about in the audience. Several times he talks about that. Okay. Of course, I think as facilitators we usually talk about participants, but they're not really participants. They're more of an audience.
Okay, so an audience. In a couple of cases, they were participants in those orchestras.
A little bit,
yes.
Yeah.
So the audience. Who else?
Karajan.
Karjan, yeah, one of the conductors, yeah.
Indeed. And it was it Klaus Bernier? No, Klaus Beinach, I think it was. Was another conductor.
It was Carlos Kleiber.
Yeah, Kleiber, that was
Kleiber,
it.
yeah. Yep, I've written all these down so I remember them too, because they were all from so many different arenas.
Indeed, and Muti.
And Muti.
Yeah.
Who else was there?
Musicians, of course.
The musicians. So the musicians were a pretty big part of what this process was about. Okay. Anybody else? Any other types? Any other characters there?
Well, obviously the presenter, the TED presenter.
Okay, so Tate was out there up front presenting everybody to us, and I think he knew every single one of those people. I think that was another part that I was like, whoa, you know, so many greats, and he's got connections with all of them. I wonder are there any particular words or phrases you remember? Are there any particular things that either he said or mostly he said, because the conductors didn't speak. So what words or phrases did Tate use to describe what was going on?
And different levels of control.
Okay.
Look at his
Want
face.
a partnership.
Partnership.
Process.
Somebody else said something I missed.
He said conductors conducted the process and the content.
Okay.
I had the same thought somebody was going to say, but their faces, the conductors' faces.
Okay, so there's some images you remember too, not just the words, but the images and behaviors. What other behaviors besides the faces did you notice? Were you paying attention to?
Body language.
Okay.
A lot of humor.
A lot of humor.
Specific humor.
Yeah.
You need an Occidental/Jewish background to understand some of his jokes.
At some level, yes. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. I did not want to interrupt.
No, sorry, Stefan, were you finished?
Yeah, but I wanted to highlight something else. I was very much focused on what he was trying to convey. So I noticed now that certain items were not picked up by me in that way.
Okay.
So, for an example, I didn't see him doing anything about leadership. He was
Okay.
talking management, not leadership.
Okay, let's come back. Let's come back to that in a little bit, because
Yeah.
so there's something there to focus on later on when we're trying to tie things together. So hold that point. What other behaviors, what other things up front did people see or notice?
A lot of the
Well,
time I notice,
I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry,
going to go to Carla first.
No,
and
go ahead. Go ahead.
Sally. Okay.
I saw a lot of seriousness on the conductor's parts.
Okay. Sally,
The
you,
one,
hang on,
the one
Joe.
that stood. Okay.
Herding cats. Okay.
Yes,
One sec. It's Charlie, so it sounds like Charlie phonetically. Yeah.
Sally. Okay.
But I'll let you off.
Thank you
It's
very much.
towards most welcome, Anne. So towards the end, was it Lenny, the guy with his eyes closed all the time?
Mhm.
So there was one moment, there was like a little whoop from the corner over here, and it's like he opened his eyes and he like acknowledged how much he appreciated it, and I felt like it was the only person, the only conductor that like showed any gratitude
Okay.
to the musicians. Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
the use of his face was amazing, and there were particular moments when his face really expressed what
Yeah,
happened.
when he only opened his eyes to sort of acknowledge. Yeah, they did it right.
Thank you, John. Sorry.
Yeah, mine was more about the facial expressions. There was one point where he did like this, you know, he was saying the conductors threatening them. But I think it was interesting how much is in the facial expression, and just very little things with the eyes, and you know, sending quite a deep message, you know. But it reminded me the importance of body language, basically.
Okay. So lots of body language, lots of expression. I mean, I guess I expected it all to be by the baton. I thought it would all be like this. So the first time I saw it, I was really quite astonished by the full body involvement of some of them. Anything else that you noticed about the environment of that, or the situation? Anything else that sort of stays in your mind about how things looked and how you saw things? Yeah, Anne?
I thought it was interesting that he compared and contrasted different conducting styles.
Okay.
And Arthur Rubinstein wasn't there, but he told a story about him,
Okay.
which I enjoyed. He said, don't look at, avoid looking at the trombones because they, they get encouragement.
Okay. Yeah. So he had a connection to both the people and to what they did. Anything else? Any other sounds? Any other things? I mean, obviously there was the music, and I think, again, anything that you remember from the music. What sounds did you hear? What things? I'm not asking you to tell me the names of the pieces, because if you can do it, I'll just be even more mortally embarrassed that I can't. But anything else you remember from the sound or from listening to those in combination with those behaviors?
It was not just different directors or conductors, it was also different types of music, styles of music. Van Karajan was definitely doing a romantic piece, for an example, which asked for a totally different style of addressing the music, feeling the music, dealing with the music. And that is something I missed. He wasn't expressing that in his lecture, that leadership is also being in the moment and leading in that moment specifically. And that I thought that was a little bit of I enjoyed the talk, but it was not the best I ever saw. Let me put it that way.
Okay. Okay. Again, let's hold, because I think those are some of the ways that you felt about it and the ways that you heard what he had to say and put meaning into that. So we'll spend a bit more time looking at that in a minute. Let's move on, because I think we're already moving on to that. what did you find any of it surprising? Were you, I mean, I know the first time I watched it, I was quite, I was quite surprised because I'm not musical or a musician, and I was quite surprised by some of it. What about you? Were there any surprises? Anything that intrigued you about the conductors or about what Tate had to say?
Joanna here. I was surprised by the fact that the conductor, by his style, he has so much influence on the orchestra. And then again, there is like a chain reaction, and the whole performance has so much different influence on the audience.
Okay.
So I thought, the conductor would be rather executing and doing it all the same way, or the most the proper way, and then you could do it so many different ways, and then you have a different impact, and not only on the musicians but also on the audience listening. So that was a surprise to me.
Okay, thanks, Joanna. Where maybe if surprise, or Vic, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that I think, like, when I've watched events before, I've always seen very energetic conductors who are very sort of expressive. So it was really interesting, the ones who were very stationary and just doing a lot of facial expressions. It just was a bit out of my experience of what I've seen when I've been to concerts.
Okay. Were there any of the performances that really engaged you, that really drew you in, that hooked you when you saw them performing?
I don't remember names very well, but one of them seeming more to be dancing with the orchestra, just in using so much more of his body, versus one standing very tightly engaged, but not very exuberant.
Okay. I think that was Kleiber, actually. I think Kleiber was the one, because he showed him a couple of different times, and he used his body quite a lot. Anybody else? Yep, John?
Yeah, it was mentioned earlier anyway, but the guy who was like basically enjoying and appreciating the music, I think he, with his eyes closed, just standing back, enjoying the moment. I think he felt like, oh, we've reached perfection here. There's nothing else I can do. My job is done. That was near the end, I think. But that was very touching, because all the time I was trying to relate this to the role of a facilitator, like I said. And I'm thinking, yeah, there are moments where things just run so smoothly that you're just very, very contented, so I could really relate to that feeling.
Great, thanks. Can I check in with a few of you? I know I haven't, and it might be because I'm missing it, but I know I've got a couple of non-video participants I haven't heard from, and I know Tina and Carrie, Melanie. I just want to be sure I'm not losing you and not hearing your voices. So is there anything you want to throw in? Were there any parts of this that really hooked you? Tina, it looks like you've unmuted.
I didn't watch the video.
Okay, so this is
I didn't know we had to watch it before. I thought it was going to be the first 20 minutes of the session.
Okay.
I will watch it after, though.
Okay. It is. You'll love it, Tina. You'll love it. You've got 10, 15 minutes of bliss afterwards.
It's sounding like the kind of thing that I'm going to enjoy. So, yeah, I will watch it.
And Joanna has raised her hand. So, Joanna, do you have anything extra? Thank you.
I have to say that I was impressed at first by watching I think this was the Italian guy from La Scala, Muti. He was, very expressive and very instructive in the directive in the way he did it. And it made me surprised even more when the guy mentioned that he was asked to leave because he did it too much, and his musicians couldn't stand it. He couldn't let them develop. So that was, so like I was impressed by the way he did. He did conduct, and then I was shocked to hear that it was exactly not the thing that musicians expect him to do.
Right. Carlo, Carrie, sorry, Carrie, were you going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that it was I loved that kind of that whole body experience of somebody, you know, really seeing.
You froze a bit for me, Carrie, so I'm missing a little bit of it.
Sorry, yeah, no, sorry, there's an issue with my computer. It keeps going on mute. Sorry, it made me think about what it's like for you.
Sorry,
I'm just
Carrie.
going to stop my computer. Sorry, my computer just keeps going on mute. It's a brand new laptop and I can't work out how to stop it. It just does its own thing. But yeah, it just made me think about that whole, the pull between being really, really passionate about what you're doing and what kind of impact that has on your, not just your audience, but participants, the people that you're orchestrating.
Okay, we got most of that this time, Carrie, so thanks. If you struggle again, please feel free to use chat because Dawn will fill us in if you put something in there. Anybody else who hasn't had? Okay. Were there any parts, any things that Tate said that sort of struck home? Things, kinds of leadership, because he mentioned a number of different. There was a lot of language around leadership. Some of it was around control. Some was directing. Were there things that sort of struck home and you thought that's what it's like in my organization, or that's sort of me, that's how I see things? Franz.
I don't remember which conductor it was, but he mentioned at a certain moment a story about a conductor who said, you know, actually, I'm not going to instruct them. They have to guess what is in my mind. And when I heard that, I was directly back at Canon. I've worked for years at Canon Europe, at European headquarters, and working with Japanese, which don't instruct you, and you have to guess. So it was really like, whoa.
Right. Any other experiences? Anybody else who sort of noticed something and thought, you know, when he describes it that way, that fits my frame, my understanding. Anne?
I love that he kept talking about partnership with the musicians, and that I think it was Carion actually who said he liked for the musicians to be an ensemble and to check with each other when to move to the next spot. That it was not all about him, although it looked like it from his form of conducting. Yeah. And then he kept talking about storytelling. That puzzled me a little bit about you want the musicians to be telling a story as well as the conductor, as well as the composer. I was a little puzzled by what he was trying to say about that.
So yeah, and how that fits. Steph, you were going to say something.
Yeah, one of the things I noticed was indeed a sort of difference between cultural background. Muti has, of course, a background which is much more, go into all the management styles and things like that. He is an Italian background where you are supposed to be more directive than Von Karajan, who comes out of a more participative culture. Yes, I'm the boss, but you guys have to do it. And you see that coming back in the way they think about leading an orchestra and leading these teams of musicians in a certain direction.
Okay, so leadership. I mean, some of you have mentioned passion. You're seeing the passion in people, seeing the need to participate, the desire to participate. You're talking also about cultural things, that there will be cultural differences in how people approach things. I'm just checking into Vikram. I'm not sure that I'm just checking. You don't have to speak, but I'm just making sure that you're having a voice if you want to. You're at the bottom of my screen, and I keep being afraid I'm missing you. Okay.
Joanna here. So you were asking what it reminded me of. Maybe not my own experience, but it reminded me of another video I saw on from another conductor. It's probably also available on TED. It's Benjamin Zander, and he has a great talk about connection between conducting and leadership. And I immediately recognized similar theses there. And Benjamin Zander saying that he himself, he was already world famous, but by when he turned 40 or 42 even, he only then he realized that that he's the only one in that orchestra who never made any sound, and he relied like 100% of the ability of his people to deliver great music. And I'm just by watching this TED, I immediately recall the other one that I watched probably many years back.
Nice. Yeah, a great comparison. Great comparison. We'll move on a little bit. Again, you're already in the place where we're talking about leadership and examples, and I'm wondering about how well do you think that the different examples that Tate presented, the behaviors and the examples of those different conductors, how well did they capture the behaviors or approaches of leaders that you've experienced? I mean, some of you have already said, I recognize the certain different styles and the control, the sort of second, you have to guess what I'm thinking, and then boom, you'll have what you need. What else? Where have you noticed, or how well do you think those examples helped you to sort of see different leadership styles?
It made me think of someone I used to work with who really responded to visual things. So like I was the finance person, so if I was being the bad guy, I had to like over exaggerate my movements and my disappointment of what he was saying when it was rubbish, in order to get him to understand. Whereas if I said the words, he just wouldn't listen and he would just keep on talking. So his style was it was very sort of driven in that way. So it definitely made me think of that as an example.
Okay. John.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know, maybe not all of them, but many of those conductors, they're obviously very sort of charismatic type people, and they're full of energy and emotion, and that's how they motivate people. Maybe not all of them, but most of them. And the guy giving the talk certainly was like that, and I wasn't surprised when I looked him up to find out he's a management consultant now, because that's obviously where he's going there.
Okay. I guess, I mean, maybe it would help to use a different sort of language around it. What are some of the key elements? So what are some of the key elements that were raised in those different styles, the key elements of leadership that you notice in your own organization, that you saw people using, or at least you may not have seen them using it, but maybe Tate helped to sort of analyze or look at what they were doing. You've talked about some of these already, some things around partnership, things around listening, around recognizing your staff stuff. But what else? What are some of the things? Because that's what I loved about this video, is that I think it really did pull in lots of different things about how leaders get the best from their people. So what elements did you notice, and what are things that might work for you? Franz again, yeah.
So I think there were two extremes. So one extreme was more like, like it is in my head, it has to be performed, executed, and otherwise it's wrong. So it's a typical leader who says, it's my way or the highway. Mm-hmm. I make the plans, I decide on the strategies, and you only have to execute. And if you don't, you're a bad performer. And the other way was like, giving the direction, so more like the vision. But it's up to you how to interpret, what needs to be done to, create a great performance. So that was a little bit what I heard.
Okay, thanks, Franz.
You're
Anybody
welcome.
else? Sorry.
My takeaway was that there are really many ways to get to the point, and there is no such thing as the best one. And the point is to adapt to the current situation, and not try to use some scheme or how to say it. Yeah, you have to adapt, inspect the situation, and adapt to the circumstances.
Okay, so that, I mean, that seems to mirror a little bit of what Steph said earlier about the sort of different music may need different things, you know, and so, you know, if you looked at it at work, maybe a different project may need a different kind of leadership style because of where you are in that project, that sort of thing. Thanks, Koam. Steph, did you have something?
Yes, but it slipped my mind in the meantime.
Okay. Well, come back in when you need to.
It will come back.
Okay. Anne.
He kept thinking, well, relating it to facilitation, and I imagine there was a lot of rehearsal, a lot of practice going on that we didn't see with these conductors. What we saw was the final performance. And when Kleiber, it looked like he was speaking to the trumpets. I'm not sure when he would, just in the midst of his conducting, he was making some notes, change, I mean, hints, change that, you're flat or something. And trying to figure out, you know, how does that relate to facilitation, because we do a lot of preparation in advance as facilitators. But when it comes the day, you know, everything is okay. You can take anything, as Koam said, be flexible, adapt, enjoy the partnership with your participants. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Anybody else? Key elements, key things that you saw in those approaches that relate to leadership and the leadership that you recognize, or relate to, if you're a facilitator, to facilitation, as Anne was describing. Anything that relates to things that you see that feel important to you. Steph, I think are you ready again?
I'm ready again.
Okay.
And this brought it back. Thank you very much. Basically, what I see is changing management, changing leadership styles, adapting styles to what is needed at the moment. That's what I see happening. The one that Anne brought up, like the conductor enjoying the moment, but hey, there is a trumpetist playing something in microtones. Mister, please. That is just a little bit like, okay, I can't let it go now, so I have to intervene a little bit and then get in there. So yeah, for me, it's again conducting leadership. It's being in that moment. And that's also when you facilitate, I think. I mean, if you have a certain group which isn't really ready for certain things, you change course, you adapt it a bit, you go where you need to go.
Okay. So I'm hearing in lots of the things that are being said, there's some common threads to what leadership or facilitation might need to hold on to in order to make things work. And although it's flexibility, there's something in here about knowing your group, knowing your people, knowing their strengths, and something about the project at hand, what kind of project that is, or what kind of music that is. But what else? What elements in terms of how he described them? And I'd really like everybody to try to think of something with this. What are some of the elements that he described in those terms that you'd like to see more of in your own workplace or in your own whether you're a volunteer or you're doing whatever kinds of work that you're doing, or your workplaces or your groups, what are some of the things, some of those elements that you'd really like to see more of, different, based on some of the things he raised? Yes.
I'm in a bit of a interesting place currently within the work that I'm doing, and there's this tension between horizontal and vertical leadership, I think, that has been brought up here in the Conductors piece. So on the one hand, I'm working in the space where there's these gatekeepers that are very much about the vertical style of leadership, as demonstrated by is it Kleiber, the first fella who got the sack from the 700 musicians who wrote a petition to get him off the podium. So on the one hand, I'm dealing with people that are very vertical in their style, and on the other hand, I'm dealing with people that don't show any initiative. So it's like trying to respond to these gatekeepers on the one hand, and really we're hoping that people would fill that space and be more proactive in co-production, and really trying to manage this dynamic currently. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's where I'm at, and the video made me think about that today.
So probably seeing a lot of the Muti happening, the sort of control stuff happening that Muti was doing.
Seeing that happen, and then seeing that, like, the people that are affected by that, perhaps in a negative way, not showing the initiative, are not
okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we can talk in a little bit. Maybe talk about what it is that would change. What a leader can do. Maybe what are some of the behaviors that maybe some of the other conductors had, or some of the other conductors used to get those people on board, to pull people back in. So what are some of the behaviors, some of the key elements of leadership that you either saw, or that Tate, and I'm sorry, I should have probably called him Mr. Calgon or something, but Itate's easier for me. What are some of the things that you saw that you'd like more of? Again,
Joanna here. So what I was drawn to, it was also the part when one of the conductors, he corrected the trumpet or something in the background that was at that moment seemed to be too loud for the harmony. I must admit I didn't even hear that, but he must have heard that, so he corrected that 3 times. And that made me think of a conductor or leader as a guardian of some kind of harmony in between everyone, not only like the loudest and not only those in the front, but also those in the background. So he is kind of the guardian of it, and I would like to see more of it in any team. So it's usually, the front line and the visible people, and there is a lot of in the background going on, or in the back office going on, which is not that visible, but it's equally important to make the harmony and the total performance. So that if I could make an analogy here, that would be it probably.
Thanks, Joanna. Tina, did you have something?
Yeah, so I know I didn't see it, but I'm sort of understanding quite a bit about it, and I think it sounds like, mutual respect and love is kind of key to making the whole thing work, and that's going to be something that's built over time. And without your orchestra, you've got nothing to lead. You've got no people to lead. So you need to have that mutual respect and I guess command respect. But yeah, give it as well.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I think there's something for me about that he's got a vision, or the conductor has a vision, but that he's also allowing people to have the space to express themselves. So it's that kind of, I suppose we used to talk about it at work, like freedom within a framework. So it's kind of like, he knows where he needs them to get to, but he's got that they've still got some freedom of what they might like to do, and that sort of I know that's worked well for me personally in the past, when you've kind of got that ability to bring a bit of flair or style to something whilst knowing that you're still operating within the where your conductor wants you to get to.
Great, thanks, Vic. And
building on Tina and Vic's comments, the ability to engage, enable people to participate in the creative process. It is not just coming from the leader, the conductor, or the composer. So how to draw that out of people, which I think must happen in the rehearsals with these conductors. So what does that mean for facilitators? Our tools to draw people out so that we're not the main thing happening. It's what the participants are doing, the musicians. Thanks.
Great, thanks. And John?
Yeah, what I wanted to talk about is what he said earlier on. Near the start, he was talking about everybody's stories being important, especially the ones who are not seen, you know? And I think that's critical in facilitation, but I mean, in life generally, because we tend to glorify the people at the top of an institution or a situation, you know, and forget about all the other people that helped put that person wherever they are, you know. So that was very powerful. In fact, when he said it, I thought, oh, great, he's going to explore this theme. I wish he had done a bit more, but for me, that was a really key point.
Okay. Anybody else? Elements that really stand out for you that you'd like to see more in place, that seem to be something that would help your organization or your own practice? Carla.
I'd say, following up on what Tina said about the love, I think there's also a trust that has to be built. And you can see that in when they do come to performance, that you trust that everybody's doing what they need to do, but then also there will be times maybe for a call out. But the beauty of an orchestra is that the audience doesn't necessarily know who's getting called out. And the beauty in that, and the trust in that.
Okay. Were there any light bulb moments? Were there any insights, any things that you'd actually, do you feel you, and I'm not sure what positions any of you are in. In an hour, we don't have time to do big intros. But are there any things that you'd particularly like to take away, that you might have some ability or authority to move on with in your own frame? Are there any of those pieces that you can think of that you'll be bringing? I think one of them, I'll just say one of them for me, and it's back to Lenny Bernstein, because for some, I mean, he was a miracle from what I remember in America. Everybody knew him, and not everybody knew every conductor, but everybody knew Lenny Bernstein, and he was just a really charismatic character. And I think the thing that I took from it that was really important to me was his joy. What I saw on his face in those last few moments of that video was like, oh, this is how, you know, if you're a great leader and you've done the very best work with your team and with the people you're in partnership with to produce this piece, that joy, that's what you're going to get from it. So that I just needed to share that, because I love him and I loved that part of the video. But are there any other things for you, key things that you'd really like to hold on to, that you'd like to, if you're leading, do yourselves, or if you're supporting a leader, that you'd like to help them do? Anything that you can think of? Tina.
I guess, you know, if you can be happy, like you've had an event or something, say, and, you know, a couple of little things have gone wrong, and, you know, like with the orchestra, maybe someone's, you know, at tune, or, you know, it hasn't gone perfectly, to still be, you know, content with all of the effort that's gone into that day, and, you know, just be happy with that and respect that everyone has tried their hardest. And every now and again, you know, things are going to go wrong, but that doesn't mean that, you know, it hasn't been a successful event. So just to be, you know, kind of content with everything that you've done.
Thanks, Tina. Okay, I'll make it a little bit more concrete then. I think maybe there's something we need to pull into play. Who else do you know who you'd show this clip to? Who else can you think of who would benefit from it, or who you might like to have a conversation about this kind of thing with someone in your own frame? Can you can you find somebody, and just I'd sort of like to go around and see if everybody could think of somebody who you might want to bring on board with you. Yeah, Melanie.
I didn't get to watch the video as consistently as I would have liked. The two kids interrupted me all the time. But anyway, I just, even the bits of the discussions here, for me, it's the phrase there that Vic used, freedom within a framework. There's a group of leaders that we offer a kind of a facilitation group to once a month. And I'd really like to bring that video for them, just to consider different styles, reflect on their own way of working, and bring the ideas into our own facilitation of that group too.
Great, thanks, Melanie. Yes, Sally.
Yeah, just off the back of your last question, gratitude is a big thing for me. I mean, pretty obvious one, but actually sometimes in the workplace, leaders or managers or that perhaps aren't as forthright in expressing gratitude for the work of their co-workers. But in terms of who I want to share the video through, definitely I'm thinking about people in a leadership role, particularly these kind of gatekeepers that I'm talking about, people that may be stuck in their way, just like getting to think a little bit more horizontally around bringing people with them to get the best out of the job at hand. So, yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to push you. Is there anybody else? Otherwise, I'm going to. Okay, Vic. Yeah, you're on mute.
Yeah, so I'm doing some like one-to-one coaching with someone who I used to work with, because they're just about to step into a new role that's like a boost up in the organisation, and one of the things they're thinking about is how to develop their style, and I think this video can be really helpful for them to think about as a great demonstration of different styles in a and what they want to do, and then we can use that as a basis for some of our conversations.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm going to pull us to a close because we've got a couple of last things to do, and I'd like to walk you through the process that we've just used. So first, the method, and Megan, could we have slide 4? So we used, oops, I've lost my screen, one sec, there we are. Oh, I've lost my screen again. Hang on for a second.
It's the ORID.
Yes, I know it's the ORID. I've lost my screen. Anyway, sorry, I'm just going to do it. I've got my notes here, so I'll do it from here. The method that we've just used for this conversation was a 4-staged method, and it's called ORID. And I just wanted to do a quick walkthrough of what that was and maybe remind you of some of the questions that we asked at each of the stages. Because what we're hoping to do with a focused conversation is to bring you through from what you've seen and heard all the way through a series, a journey to what you might do next. And the first is the objective level. So we asked you, I asked you questions to engage your senses. I asked you what you heard, what you saw. I asked you in particular about what different people, who were the different people involved, what were some of the images, what were some of the behaviors that you saw used. And that's to give everybody a chance to work together and have a similar picture at the beginning of a conversation about what it is that you saw and heard. Because I think, as we all know, we all have our own filters and we all see different things. So getting a group to come to that together can give you a much broader picture of what you just saw. We then move on to the reflective level. And the reflective level is about helping us to really engage and connect with that topic, to think about what it means to us. And I asked you questions from the heart. So questions, things like, what did you find surprising or intriguing? Where were you drawn in? Where were you engaged? What reminded you of things in your own environment? So it's to give you a chance to sort of pull together and become more connected to the topic itself. Make it your own in a way. So it's looking for intuitive and emotional responses, looking at memories and associations. We then move on to the interpretive level. And the interpretive level, now it's sort of, once you've looked at what it is that you all saw together, how you all felt about it, or each individually felt about it and felt as a group, to begin to look at how you make connections, how you form ideas around it. What are some of the, creating some meaning, both for yourselves individually, but also collectively. What is it that we saw there? What were some of the key things? And maybe to see some options and possibilities, things that you might be looking at that you might want to do something with. And finally, we go to the decisional level. And so, sorry, at the interpretive level, again, I asked you questions like, what were some of the key elements of leadership? What were some of the elements and approaches that you'd like to see more of? And this is where you began to talk, you remembered the term, the guardian of harmony. You talked about love, mutual respect, partnership, the things that drew people together. So finally, at the decisional level, we begin to talk about what you might do with this, what actions you might take, what choices you might make. And how you're going to respond to what you saw. I mean, I think in any conversation, we would hope that people, at the end of the day, would go away with being slightly different than they were at the start of the conversation, having something they wanted to think about or do or consider differently. So we asked you questions about what you might do. And that was, I asked you if there was anything you might want to apply in your own work and who else you might show the clip to. So that's a way to tie that conversation in and finish the conversation with actions, with things that might happen next. I know there may be some questions around this, but we're getting towards the end of our time. So I'm going to ask you to hold those just for a minute if you've got some. And I wonder if we could look at the next slide. I just want to talk you through where this fits, where this focused conversation fits within ICA's technology of participation. So Megan, have you got that up? Because my screen's gone. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am hearing you. Sorry,
Sorry.
The
and I just
slide
got my
is
screen
up.
back again. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Thank you. So ICA UK is the Institute of Cultural Affairs, for those of you who don't know it. And it's an organization that's part of a global organization. The technology of participation are the methods that have been developed over the last 60 years through ICA's work all around the world and in lots of different communities. So it's just to note that the values and what underpins this focused conversation method is inclusive participation, keeping people involved, teamwork and collaboration, individual and group creativity, ownership and action, and reflection and learning. So the method is meant to give you a way to really look, the methods are meant to give you a way to include people and collaborate. The method we used today was the focused conversation. There's also a consensus workshop, action planning, participatory strategic planning, and the historical scan. I'm noting here these are all parts of, they either stand as courses on their own, or the first two methods, focus, conversation, and consensus workshop, are part of the group facilitation methods course. And we also are doing, I'm doing a collaborative leadership course that incorporates quite a few of these things into it. So there's lots of different things to look at for the future if you're interested in knowing more about the methods. What I'd like to do before we head to the last slide, which is there's some more resources and some more things, is a couple of things. One, we're going to stay online for 10 minutes after 4 o'clock because we know that some of you will need to leave right on the dot at 4, but if anybody has questions or wants to have further discussion, we'll be online for about 10 minutes. And the other thing is we have a poll that we'd like to ask you to do. And I wonder, Megan, have you got the poll?
Yeah, it should come up now, I hope.
And all you have to do, it's a very quick one. It's not a huge sheet with lots of answers, just yeses and nos and a couple of multiple choice. So if you could do a very quick look at that and answer those questions, that would be really helpful for us because we're just running these sessions. It's new to us to be running these.
So we've got 9 people have voted so far, 10. The joys of Zoom polls.
Yeah. We appreciate you doing this. As I said, it's going to be really helpful to us because we're just beginning to run these to get a flavor for what people, how people are feeling about them from the start.
Okay, so I'm going to end polling in a second. So if you haven't pressed the relevant buttons, please do so, and I will stop. Okay, I'm going to stop polling now, and I'll move to the next slide. I'll just 1 second. Oops.
Thanks. Okay, so there is training, just again to let you know, there's training available, and we'd be very happy to have any queries or questions from any of you about the training in TOP. So there's training. They sell sticky walls, which you won't know anything about if you haven't seen TOP methods, but if you do, sticky walls are the best thing since sliced bread. Lots of books and resources. My focus conversation is here, and you probably can't see it, but I still use it all the time. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I pick up my book and I look through it for help on questions every now and again. And there are lots of books and resources. There are free facilitation meetups. There are IAF meetups. Megan runs one in Cardiff. At the moment, they're all virtual. So if you're interested in just having a place to go and talk about facilitation skills and questions and queries, there's a place to go for those. And there's ICA and technology participation worldwide. So we have quite a broad, again, there's quite a broad picture of that. Oh yeah, sorry, John, you're right. IAF is the International Association of Facilitators, or facilitation. I think all of these are big mouthfuls. Little acronyms are so much easier to say, but thanks for that. So it's just to say there are a lot of resources out there, and can we hit the final page, Megan? If you go to, you've already been on their website if you've signed up for this, but if you wanted to, this is being recorded. So the session, you'll be able to re-watch the session. So for anybody who didn't get to watch the video up front or watched it sporadically and wants to look at it in context, there'll be a recording of this. There's a whole range of the top courses and what's on offer. Obviously during this time, we're not doing face-to-face, but we are now in the process. Megan and Dawn, I think in particular, and Martin are all looking at delivering these online, many of our courses. And you can join the wider community, join these facilitation meetups and get used to, having a place to go to air your current worries about all of that. You can absolutely feel free to contact me. if you're interested in particular more on the topical stuff, because I said I run a leadership course, so on top of the IAF, the methods, I've also got quite a lot of stuff on leadership if you wanted to have a look. We do have some other ones coming up, and I'm just going to very quickly go through them. On the 5th of May, Martin is doing an event, taking an event online. On the 14th of May, we're doing facilitator, Megan and I are doing facilitator resilience. On the 15th of May, Dawn is doing one on reflective practice. My next leadership one is the 1st of June, and it looks like it's exactly the same one as this. It is not. We'll be looking at Kouzes and Posner's 5 practices of exemplary leadership, and there's an article that you'll get sent if you sign up for that one. So I think that's all we have today. Are there any questions? Anything? If you want to stay on, we will be staying on. We're very happy to have you stay on with us and ask questions. But otherwise, I know some of you will have to go, because in this age of Zoom, it seems like it's back-to-back meetings, then it's not just Zoom, it's whatever it is, meetups and Messenger, and oh god, they're all over the place. So we know some of you will have to go, but we will be on for a while. So we'll stay here. And if you do want to stay on, just unmute and we can start having a different kind of conversation and answer any of your questions. But I am so glad to have seen so many of you. It was really, really lovely. This is much more fun to do than some of the other meetings I'm having at the moment on Zoom. So thank you very much for coming. And I hope that we'll see you again on some of the other sessions. Okay, so